And those are going to be the opportunities that buyers will find. Those same buyers, like you said, that were out competing against 5 other offers, one of which might have been cash. I mean, just on that same note, for folks that are thinking about refinancing that want that rate, the advice would be to get everything ready so that when that rate comes, it's not, oh, let's get started with the process and hope that it lasts for a couple of weeks to lock it in. Be ready to go. Now, but the risk on the other side, Jesse, is just like we tried to time prices, and is that if you start to get too caught up in trying to time an 1/8 of a point adjustment in interest rate because you're trying to find that magical 2 7/8 or 3 1/8, you can also lose sight of the forest for the trees there too. And so the thing that really comes to the forefront here for me is that there are a number of variables that matter here. It's not just trying to find the lowest price, but there's a host of combined factors that all play together. And on top of each individual's unique circumstances, their goals, their needs, their current housing situation, and what they have to leave or dissolve or get rid of, all those things matter, and they all play into this, quote, timing determination.
There's no question that everybody wants to time the price. There's no question everybody wants the lowest price, right? And so all we're trying to do is have the next most obvious, like I was going to say it backwards, debate, which is, okay, let's say you've done all that click, 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 which we're almost kind of taken for granted right now, like the why and the when, are you still in, you got the job security, you got the down payment, like all the click, click, clicks, and you're in the timing conversation. It's like, yeah, man, try to get that price down as low as you can, no question. But it's like, really, don't go running down the dime and let the dollar go flying by, because it's almost like you can take a slight little hit on the chin, maybe. This is, it's never one size fits all, but if you're in that category, maybe you're even willing to ride that down a little bit. If that's the case, as long as it meant that you got like a 3% interest rate or a 3 point, whatever the heck it got down to, whatever, because when it does go back up, you still are locked in at that low payment.
Right. I mean, that's, yeah. And so then, so if we're not, if we're out there not worried about today as much the payment or the rate and where prices are, what kind of things I think people want to hear, like what can we do? Yeah.
Well, and I love the other side of that too, right? Like we spend a lot of time kind of on the internal game, because that's really where the conversation lives and dies, right? That whole sort of sequence. It's almost like that's from the locker room. And then you go out in the field. Now you're out in the field, right? And I think one of the real interesting things in the out in the field deal is the vis-a-vis of what that buyer was experiencing in January and February, when there were 10x the amount of buyers. There was multiple offers like crazy. You were getting squeezed out. There was not a lot of oxygen for the average cat that didn't have a huge down payment, was just throwing around appraisal contingencies waived, like for the sport of it. Like you go out there now, there might be a little bit of extra interest, but basically you're kind of hanging out there. You're having about as close to a conversation with the seller as you're ever going to get, at least in San Diego anyway. Like, the pool has gone down to the people that just really kind of want to be out there, right? There's that. And then on the other side, you've got the sellers that also really want to be out there too. So it's almost kind of like a poker game where all of a sudden you put on your fancy goggles and you can see everybody's card. Mm-hmm. Before, when there was 10 sellers, you didn't really know who was the super motivated, aggressive seller that was ready to do the hot deal, because they all kind of looked the same. There was the tippy-toe guys that were out there trying to see if they could get the really sexy price that their neighbor got times 10 grand. And then there's the folks that really needed to sell. Sure. And what happened is, down here anyway, is there was a little bit of an immediate recede. Like the sellers that didn't have to be there, well, they kind of went away. And so the ones that were left were like, oh, okay, game on, right? Those are the ones that actually really want to be here right now, and they're probably more inclined to make a deal.
I agree with that. I think that seller cards have been shown during this time and more than they were before. Sellers that lower their list price since last week through this week and the next couple weeks, they're going to be showing a little more motivation than those that maybe pulled their home back from the market or have just let it sit there at the price waiting for this to pass. And those are going to be the opportunities that buyers will find. Those same buyers, like you said, that were out competing against five other offers, one of which might have been cash, and they felt like there was no chance to get a house. All of a sudden, with the fewer competitors and a few more homes to choose from, perhaps, and a little more motivation on the seller side, some folks are going to be able to get homes that weren't having success before this time, and those are folks that are going to want to move now and take action.
So I love chunking down almost kind of like a chapter summary type thing. So the ground covered so far is like, start with your own house first, right? Puns intended, maybe, right? Like get all your game tight on the internal deal with the job security, the down payment security, the idea of staying vigilant out in the market, because if that rate does come down, or you do find that one house that's the unbelievable house, and maybe you can actually negotiate something a little better than what you could have before this whole thing. You hate to say take advantage of a situation, because that's a horrible frame to imagine taking advantage of the situation. But in this regard, as a buyer, timing the market, that's really kind of a different way of saying that sort of same thing. Like if you can find the right house and you can maybe get a respectable deal on it, and then you could potentially even get a rate down as it slides down. It's like, that's kind of the sweet spot of where to be with that. And then we talked about some other conditional stuff as to why timing might be good on that end. Now, what about like, what comes next on that, right? Like, how would you solve for some of the problems that typically ail a buyer, right? Like the gilded buyer's remorse. Like, how could you use this sort of pause back as an opportunity to defend against that in advance?
Well, sure. I think that some of the strategies, some of the things that buyers can do today, I recommend that the buyers get a sense of what styles of homes they like. Some markets in Las Vegas, we have access to a database of floor plans for the existing homes that have been built. So buyers can go out and find properties that are on the market and see a layout of the floor plan on top of the photos. It really gives them an opportunity to start to investigate what layouts they like and what ones might be in interest right now, even while they're on the sidelines, to watch those houses and see how they kind of play out over these days and weeks ahead. So there's certainly some virtual digital research that can be done that maybe the pace of the market before now didn't allow people to take that time. You just had to get in your car and run out and see houses and make quick decisions, or you were going to get lapped by another buyer. And I think that people have some time to step back and do some digital review and really get a handle on what's important to them.
Yeah, and I think that's a real concern right now. Like, you don't want to be cutting off your nose in spite of your face. You're out there, you decide you still want to be a buyer. Like, you don't want to be relegated to some of the limitations that are now present in the COVIDs that weren't before. Like the ability to just go out and kind of check out a home and have it kind of feel normal. Like, how do you make sure that you're still accounting for all those important things, right? And I love what you said. You got the virtual stuff. Like, we're doing walkthrough tours, for our clients that don't feel comfortable going out. Whenever we do go out, we're all masked and gloved and got the whole deal with the nines and the sanitizer and you name it. And we're signing disclosures, for both parties before we go check it out. Like, we're following all those rules. But I'll tell you, there's some things that never change. And for us, one of the greatest defenders against buyer's remorse, which is only going to be now tenfold if you got a little bit extra time, is doing the old Army reconnaissance on the neighborhoods first, right? This is a callback to NAR. I think they did a study when they were trying to unpack this buyer's remorse thing. And they said like 80 to 90% of what goes into liking a home has nothing to do with being on the inside.
Isn't that great?
Right.
This is huge. This is a massive point right here, because let me just ask this question before I think where you're going to go. Have you felt, and have your buyers felt over these last maybe months, if not year or so, that they've been forced to make a decision so quickly that things like some of the area amenities or the proximity to a place of work or to where the in-laws live, those things, there wasn't time to process through all of that at a level that people really wanted. And so they had to make quick decisions. And so this gives them that time to go back and study those things that I think you're going to talk about.
And it's true too, right? Because you can always change the stuff walls in, like if the layout's wrong, and maybe, I don't know, you got a couple extra bucks laying around in the coffers after picking the thing up, or you do it over time. you improve it. You'll knock out a wall, you'll open it up, you'll do the floors you want because you hate carpet, whatever. Like there's so much amalgamation you can do walls in. You can't change what though? Can't change the neighborhood. You can't change your neighbors, right? You can't change how stacked up you are in each other. You can't change the commute. Can't change the school system. Can't change the whatever, you know, if it's in a cul-de-sac or how close it is to the grocery store. Like
Park or anything.
That's the stuff that you got to dial in, right? And you've been doing this long enough, even with your highest level of efficacy as a real estate agent, you'll still have those calls 5 years later where the buyer, the then buyer who's now selling is like, hey man, we learned so much about living in that home. We love it. We appreciate it being there. But on the next one, we're solving for that, and that.
Right. Things that never really came up the first time they went to search because they didn't know they were important to them. And so this is the time that individuals can go out and really figure those things out because they have time. And there's another benefit to doing that because I believe that when this comes back, when it's time, when the green light flips back on and it's time to go out and start looking, the masses go back to looking at houses and making those purchases, there may be some houses out there, but the bulls are going to run. It's going to happen quickly. And so getting that stuff prepared for and handled now will put you strategically ahead of so many others when it's time to go out and find that right home, whenever that moment might be.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I don't know if there's anything else that I could imagine adding to that, right? And it seems to make the most sense, right? I mean, normally it's like the 6P deal, right? The proper planning, preventing the poor performance, right? It's like, it couldn't be maybe more poignant or applicable in this situation because you're trying to manage things outside of your control, right? You're trying to manage where the thing's going to go in the short term, where it's going to go in the long term, where the rates are going to, the vis-a-vis, like it's going to, so what do you do instead? You focus on what you can control, right? What can you control? You can stay vigilant in the market. Doesn't mean you got to go out and make an offer right now on Saturday, right? But stay vigilant in the market. Continue to watch it. Like, are you seeing it? Oh, there was a big comp bomb, big dive. Okay, whoa. Back up a little bit. Like it looks like it's still got a little bit more to fall. Price resistant. We had one that we were vying for just last weekend in the middle of a pandemic that had 8 offers in the first couple hours.
Right.
That was priced reasonably. It wasn't like it was a big fire sale. So it's going to be totally nuanced and pockety as it is times 10. So staying vigilant on that and then just watching those rates, man. Because if you can pinpoint those two things and you're ready when that rate gets to where that rate needs to be and you pull the trigger, you're going to be 10 times ahead of the one who's just now seeing that the rate dropped and then said, oh, honey, we got to get back going again.
Right. That's just it, is that I think that's if there was one word of advice, it's don't wait to start your vigilance. Don't wait to start your research. Don't wait to do what you can do now for that moment when the switch is flipped, because you'll be, in many respects, you may be behind then. And so that's the best advice that if I could share with your tribe and with your followers, it's get busy right now, not like you said, making an offer, but there's a lot that can be done that can get you positioned to make your best decision for you and your family and or whoever else is important in that calculus.
Yeah. So I apologize in advance, DB, and anybody who catches this. I really intended on this being like a 15-minute-er. I'm pretty sure we butchered that, but I hope that there was a good little exchange there of some ideas. And if it found somebody, well, hallelujah. If you are in the Vegas market, man, nobody better. David Brownell Team Realtors, thank you for your time, brother.
Good seeing you, man. Be good.
All right.
I'll talk to you soon. Thanks,
All right,
Jesse.
Yep.